So I kind of think today's topic is a bit of a bombshell. And what I'm about to say is kind of inflammatory, some might think, but I'm going with it anyway because it's been the truth of my experience as a teacher and as a singer over the last 20 years. And it's simply this, that the way singers are currently trained in this country does not work. And I say this with great love and great hope for the future and for change, because I was a product of this broken system that ultimately failed me. And I had to go outside of it to find success and to understand just how broken this system really is. So the way that it goes is, the majority of highly respected voice teachers and highly respected vocal coaches and singing programs, they focus primarily on one thing. Anybody know what it is? Technique, okay? Technique, technique, technique. That is what the highly respected teachers focus on. Your exercises, your resonance, your breath support, vocal eases. And don't get me wrong, you need good technique. That is super important. But, and hear me clearly, vocal technique is not optimized in a vacuum. Your body cannot do what your brain is sabotaging, okay? So you've all heard me say this, and I'm sure you've heard your teachers say this, that your body is your instrument when you're a singer. That's it. It's not like we have some violin that we can, tune outside of us. Your body is your instrument, and most experts and well-respected teachers, we all follow that philosophy. But here's the thing. In the way that singers are currently trained and currently taught by most well-respected teachers and experts in the field at institutions, your teacher will work with you on your resonance and your breath support. You get in touch with your abdominals and your back body. And if you're lucky enough, you'll have a teacher who talks about your pelvic floor and your intercostals, and you'll understand the inhale in your lungs, and they'll explain the direction of support and the shape of your resonance. And if you're really lucky, you have a teacher who shows you and talks to you about apoyo and how to ground your sound in your body and how to lean into your support. But see, I want you to consider the image of an entire body and everything that I just talked about, okay? So in this current way of teaching singing that I was just talking about, there is one giant critical part of your body, of your instrument, that is left out. Any idea what it is? What part of that body is left out? I'm talking about breath, I'm talking about resonance, I'm talking about intercostals and lungs and pelvic floor and apoyo and all that stuff. What is being left out? Your mind, okay? The way singers are being taught traditionally in this country does not work because it doesn't train your whole instrument, because it forgets to include your mind and your thinking, training that. When you don't address a singer's mind as part of her whole instrument, you leave out the one part of this body and this instrument that will, if left to its own devices, sabotage everything else. All that great technique that you're learning, okay? So it'd be like if NASA erected a rocket. I use this analogy a lot. If NASA erected a rocket and equipped it with all kinds of kick-ass technology, right? And that's all of your technique. So you get all this kinds of kick-ass technology and then didn't put any fuel in the rocket. Would that rocket ever fly? No. And yet that's how singers are trained. Most teachers neglect to show singers how to fuel the freaking rocket. And you know why? Because most teachers don't know how to fuel the rocket themselves, because they are the product of the same broken system and they were never taught either. So as I see it, you guys are an unintended casualty of a flawed system. And I was too, trust me. I speak of this because I had to go outside of this system to understand some of these things, to actually fuel my rocket, so to speak. And, it's like I understood the technique, but I didn't have the fuel to fly until I understood how to incorporate my mind in training my whole instrument, because this is part of your body. And once I knew that, then that rocket could fly. So I know what you're probably wondering right now. Arden, what's the fuel, right? What's the fuel? So the fuel that's going to catalyze all this technique that you're learning is understanding how to optimize the mind and body connection. When you do that, when you make that shift to understanding and learning how your mind and body can work together for you instead of fighting against each other and sabotaging you, then all that great technique that you've been taught hooks in, and then amazing singing becomes effortless and reliable. And then that rocket is going to fly. And so I'm curious, how many of you who are on this live right now feel like you can relate? Like, how many of you feel like your mind does sabotage your singing in some way? And what I mean by if you feel like you relate, if you feel like you get in your own way, if you feel like your nerves get in your way, or your thinking, meaning like different thoughts come in your head and freak you out, like, oh, that note, I can't do that, or I can't, any can'ts or shouldn'ts or won'ts. Like, how many of you feel like that actually affects you? Or here's one. How many of you feel like you can make an amazing sound, totally nail that hard piece or that hard phrase just the way you want when you're by yourself? Either practicing by yourself, or you're in your shower, or you're just alone practicing in your house or your bedroom. But the moment it counts, the moment someone else is listening, you choke. Does that happen to you? Or maybe you don't completely choke, but you also know that it doesn't sound as good or feel as good as when you're alone. That you have a great success rate when you're, in the concert of one, and then all of a sudden when you go into that audition, or maybe when you go into a recording studio, or you go in for that big gig, it's like, it's okay, it's passable, it's good, but it's not what you did when you were practicing by yourself. Do you relate to that? That happens. That is so common. It happens to a lot of singers. How many of you feel like you have this amazing sound in there because you've heard it? You've heard it from time to time. It comes out, when you're least expecting it, or, you're doing the same thing that you always do, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not, and you don't really understand why. And it's like, this great sound is in there because you've heard it in fits and starts, but you can't rely on it, and you can't rely on when it's going to show up for you every single time. Is this you? Because so many of us deal with that. And it's a really sucky place to be, because it creates even more anxiety that compounds on itself. And it creates this negative feedback loop of fear and tension, which you've heard me talk a lot about many times if either you work with me or you follow my content. And that negative feedback loop is really, really hard to get out of. So what that looks like is, you can't really 100% rely on doing it the best and singing to your potential every single time. So you can't really rely on that coming out all the time. And so you kind of hedge, or you push, or you manipulate, or you force, or you hold as a reaction to that inconsistency, which then actually creates the sound that you were fearing in the first place, which then reinforces that fear, which then creates an even stronger reaction to push or force or hedge or manipulate the next time. And it's that spiral. It just keeps going. It's a really hard negative feedback loop to break once we're in it. And what happens is it makes taking the kind of inspired action and calculated risks in your career or in your training that are necessary makes that really hard. It makes doing those things that you need to do to get to the next level of success very difficult, because you're in this negative feedback loop of lack of trust leading to fear, leading to push, manipulate, leading to the sound that you don't like, which means you trust less, you fear more, and it just keeps going. But, big old but, imagine knowing that every time you open your mouth, you're going to get your best sound. That all that stress and fear and anxiety is eliminated. Can you imagine going into audition, if you're a singer who's like an opera singer or a Broadway singer and you do a lot of auditions, can you imagine going into audition and every single time just feeling like relaxed? I got this. Like having that deep inner knowing that your instrument and your body and your sound is going to show up for you. Can you imagine that? And this is not some kind of fantasy of being able to go into any performance, any audition, and having that. This is not a fantasy. This is 100% available to you guys once you have engaged that mind and body connection to be the fuel that's going to catalyze this technique. And so the new way of working, it incorporates mindful integration to train the brain and harness this power of thought to optimize your whole instrument and expand your artistry. And to help you when you do that, then you get to the next level of success that you've been wanting, the next level of performance, the next level in your career. And when you do that, it's because you are now singing in a way that delivers those auditions, that delivers those performances, and that allows you to make those recordings that get noticed every single time. Because that way, you have finally gotten the tools to get out of your own way and to incorporate this with this. And it reminds me of one of my students, Anne, so I want to tell you about her because she's just a fantastic example of the old way versus the new way. So Anne is an opera singer, and she was really the product of the broken system. So she was really almost ready to throw in the towel when she came in and she started to work with me. And she had gone to an undergrad program and she'd majored in vocal performance, and she continued to focus on her singing after she graduated, but she wasn't getting anywhere. She didn't have any trust. Her ability to deliver a professional sound at that point was wildly inconsistent despite all her training, and it was causing her so much anxiety and so much fear when it came to auditioning and performing, and not to mention so much self-doubt and inferiority because she hadn't been able to fix this problem for herself, and she was starting to make it about her own worth, which then just made everything worse. And she had this sinking feeling like all that time and energy that she'd spent on her singing and her passion had been a waste of time, because here she was 27 or 28 and she had very little to show for it. So all of these emotions, all of this stinking thinking was showing up as a ton of tension in her neck and in her jaw, and a rigid holding of her support when she sang, which made everything worse because she was self-protecting. We have physical reactions to our thoughts, you guys. That's why if we neglect this, we can't use the technique that we know, because the body is just in fight or flight reaction mode every time we sing, and we don't even realize it. And that's where all the tension and the holding is coming in, and it's making her sound even worse, which is making her trust even more. And now she's in that negative feedback loop. So she came and she worked with me, and we took a look and we really got under the hood together. And as she began to understand how to work with this mind-body connection and really work it in her instrument, she learned how to practice what I call radical self-care, and I did a whole live on that a couple of months back, so you can check that out. She learned how to use this mind-body technique to catalyze her her efficiency of her technique that she already knew. She learned how to practice this mindful integration and bring it all into the moment of singing, which is really important because like you can go to a meditation class and learn like, but that's not going to help you when you're singing if nobody's showing you how to integrate that mindfulness in the moment of singing, how to be present in the moment of singing and not just go on autopilot. So meditation is great, learn to meditate, but that's not going to solve this problem. What Anne learned how to do is how to practice and learn mindful integration into the moment of her singing. And then her sound began to change. And within a few months, this talented singer who was suffering so much from being so stuck in tension and inconsistency and anxiety began to access a free sound, a beautiful sound, and best of all, a reliable sound. And so fast forward to now, and she who was so fearful before and had all this talent and all this training, but very little to show for it, is now fearlessly auditioning and performing and working and singing roles that she only dreamed about before. And I want to share with you something that she wrote with me a couple months back. It was after she was in between two operas, and she writes me and she says, I'm going to read it to you. In the last opera that I performed, the Pergolesi, and the one I'm currently working on, the Handel, I feel like my voice is finally able to do what I always wanted it to do. The arias that I'm working through would have been impossible a year ago and now fit my voice like a glove. So I wanted to share that with you guys because this is why I do what I do. Left to the old training, Anne would have quit because that way it didn't even begin to address her problem. And so this is why I say that the way singers are currently trained in this country is broken. It's broken. Because understanding technique means absolutely nothing if your brain is sabotaging your body's ability to fully use it. So yes, technique is important, but without optimizing and getting this in the game, who cares? I can give a singer all the technique in the world. And those of you who have worked with me, you know that I work you hard in technique. And I have some of the best technique in the world. But it doesn't matter how much technique I give you if your mind is sabotaging it. And if your body and your brain don't know how to work together to get out of the way of Mother Nature's most effective production of sound. So we do a great disservice to singers, I feel, by not showing you how to train your whole instrument, mind and body. And in doing so, I think the world loses out on a lot of great talents. Because think about it, you guys, get real honest with yourself. Like, how many times in your quiet moments do you sit there and think, oh, I don't know if I have what it takes to do this. Like, I know it's a hard path. I know being an artist is difficult, but like, I don't know. Like, be honest. How many of you have had that? I remember lying in bed when I was a 20-something singer, and, you know, I'm older than that now, you guys. I'm in my 40s now. And I remember 20 years ago lying in bed and being like, I don't know if I have what it takes. And if I hadn't searched out for myself and found out this new way, do you think I ever would have sang with San Francisco Opera? No. Do you think I ever would have had the balls to make a pop record? I mean, who sings opera and then goes and makes a pop record, okay? But I share this because there's so many of you who I think feel stuck in that pain of that self-doubt of wondering if you're good enough, and knowing that you are, but you just don't know how to get from here to there. And I don't want you to quit before you do, just because you're hanging on to this old way of training that doesn't address the real problems, okay? So don't let that be you. You have too much passion, you have too much talent, you have too much artistry to end up being a casualty of this broken system. And if you have related to this today, and if you feel ready to step into the highest and best version of yourself as a singer so that you can achieve that level of success in your singing that you know you're capable of, you just have no idea how to get there, then please book a call with me. And I'm announcing today that I have 3 spots left in my coaching program. So this is the seminal 2-month program that teaches you, where you learn how to build this mind-body connection in your singing, how to build this foundation to fuel your rocket. It's for singers who have already had training, so it's not for newbies. If you've never taken voice lessons before, this is not for you, but I don't think any of you in this group are in that position. This is for singers who have already had training, but have no clue how to optimize it to break through to that next level, to get where they're going, and who really want help to do that right now. So I have 3 spots left. Anne did it, who I was just talking about. My student Kay did it. I'm number 28 on the Billboard charts. I have a song, my student Kay, who I was talking about at the beginning of this intensive, she did it. And now she's got a song that she wrote that's charting, number 28 on the dance charts. I mean, how freaking amazing. She's got the tools. Anne's got the tools. So I just have 3 spots left right now, and I only work with a small group of singers at a time. So if you're ready to rock and roll, give me a call. Book a call with me. I'm going to put it in the chat, because wouldn't it be amazing if in 2 months you could be singing with a whole new reality and a whole new threshold of what you're capable of? That's what I want for you guys. I don't want you to fall as a casualty of this broken system. So here's the link in the chat. If you're ready to rock and roll, book a call with me and sit down, take a moment. Think about where you are, think about where you want to go, and then be decisive. Make a decision on what is the best possible thing you could do to get you there. All right, you guys. Well, I've been on my soapbox, pounding it out about why I think traditional training does you a disservice. So now you know. And feel free to argue with me. I'm all about an open discussion, but I think that there's a pretty strong case to be made for a new way, which is why I do what I do. So if you'd like one of those 3 spots that I still have right now in the program, book a call with me and let's get you rocking and rolling. Have an awesome day. Shoot me a little note in the chat if you have any comments about what we've been talking about today. And hopefully I will talk to you guys soon. Okay,